What's up, everyone? It's the Benchwarmers, and today we are going to be looking at the first round of the NBA playoffs. So there's a lot of really interesting series, and this is going to be one of the most exciting playoffs that we've had in a while because there's no clear favorite. So without further ado, let's get it started with the 1-8 matchup in the West.
And the 1-8 matchup is the Suns and the Pelicans. And for this one, we have the Suns winning in four. I think this one isn't that hard because the Suns are the number one team in the NBA, while the Pelicans have been fairly inconsistent. They just won their playing game, and they're only 36-46. And even though they have guys like CJ McCollum, they got Jonas Valanciunas and Brandon Ingram, we don't think they're good enough to beat the number one Suns.
Next up for the 2-7 matchup in the West, we have the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. Now, the Timberwolves are a lot better team offensively than defensively. And even on the defensive end, they've improved significantly leaps and bounds with the addition of players such as Jared Vanderbilt and Patrick Beverley. But this team is still a very new team to the spotlight, as are the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies had their first taste of the playoffs in last year as an 8 seed, and they got knocked out in the first round. But we think that they will win this battle of top offenses, especially transition young offenses, in 6 games.
Next up, we have the 3v6 seed, the Warriors and Nuggets. So we think this is actually going to be a pretty good matchup because these are both two of the stronger teams in the Western Conference. I think the Nuggets are probably actually better than the 6th seed. And so are the Warriors. You could say the Warriors are probably the second or even possibly the best team in the West. But I think this is going to be a very interesting game or matchup. But currently the Warriors have already won game 1 even without Steph, or they had Steph Curry, but he didn't really play at full strength. So I think with Curry back at his full capacity, I think the Warriors are just a better team overall, even though the Nuggets have, I think, the best player in the matchup, which is Jokic.
And next, we have the Jazz facing off against the Mavericks. I believe this is a 4v5 game, and we have the Jazz winning in 6. And this is because I think personally, I'd have the Mavericks winning in 7 if Luka and the whole squad was healthy, or at least I think it'd be a closer matchup. But Luka didn't play today, and they lost. Still a close game, and he's probably not going to play for game 2. So I think that drastically lowers their chances. And the Jazz, they are a very solid defensive team. They can also shoot very well from the threes. I think they're an all-around solid team. So I think it's good to say that they're going to win in 6.
So that is the Suns, Grizzlies, Warriors, and Jazz moving to the conference semifinals in the Western Conference. Now move to the Eastern Conference. The 1-8 matchup is the Heat versus the Hawks. And we think that this is going to be a bit more lopsided than a lot of people think. We have the Heat winning in a gentleman's sweep, even though the Hawks are a great team and they made it all the way to the conference finals last year. I think that this iteration of the team just doesn't have the same enthusiasm, the same awesome offensive and defensive capabilities as that team last year. And also, I think the matchup is just terrible. The Heat have some really good defensive guards and forwards such as Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and off the bench, they have some amazing three-point shooters like Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and more. Kyle Lowry will do a really good job on defense and facilitating the ball. And I just think that the Heat have too much and will overwhelmingly defeat the Hawks in 5.
Yeah, next up, we have the 2v7 seed in the East, and that is Celtics versus Nets. So even though, 2nd versus 7th seed is usually seen as kind of a lopsided matchup, this is actually the matchup that we thought was going to be the most contested out of the whole playoffs, because the Nets are realistically better than the 7th seed, and they're not really a regular season team, they're more of a playoff team. So I think there's a lot of different arguments that could be made for both sides, but we ultimately having this going to game 7, but with the Celtics winning. So the Nets are, I think, a very solid team overall. Obviously, you have one of the best duos in the league with Kyrie and Durant, but I just think that the depth that the Celtics provide, and then also just that incredible scoring ability with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, as well as their good defensive weapons. Even though they're lacking Robert Williams, I think still towards the last few weeks of the regular season when they didn't have Robert Williams, they were still playing good defense. So I think overall that combination gives the Celtics a very, very slight edge.
And next we have the Bucks versus Bulls matchup, and we have the Bucks winning in 4. And this is because the Bucks are just objectively the better team. They're proven to be solid. They actually won the championship last year, which makes them the defending champs. And they have all these veterans like Drew Holiday, even Giannis and Chris Middleton now. Whereas the Bulls, they do have some veterans and they do have some good talent, but it's just been kind of inconsistent seeing this squad of guys put together. Like they had a good start to the season, but it got shaky. They won some games that that they shouldn't have won, but they also lost a lot of games that they shouldn't have. So it just makes a lot more sense that the more consistent Bucks would win. And the Bucks have already proven that they're a really solid, like top 3 offense and defensive team in the NBA. And also on top of that, the Bucks are 4-0 against the Bulls this season, and both of the last games, which happened in the last month or two, were 20-plus point blowouts. So I think that goes to show that the Bucks match up well against the Bulls.
Now moving on to the last and to some people most interesting matchup of the entire playoffs first round. We have the Philadelphia 76ers facing off against Toronto Raptors. And this is going to be a really interesting series because it's a matchup of star power versus teamwork and coaching, because I think that while you have a top 2 MVP candidate and my personal MVP in Joel Embiid, and also a player who sometimes is bad in the playoffs, but is nonetheless a very great scorer and facilitator in James Harden, along with other pieces like Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and so many more, versus a team like the Raptors, who just have so many long bodies who can just throw at you, like Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, and more. Just having that a team like spirit and the better coach in Nick Nurse. A lot of people are picking them for the upset, but we think that when it comes time to the playoffs, star power matters the most, and the ability for James Harden and Joel Embiid to get to the line at will and also to make clutch shots and their playoff experience just will overwhelm the inferior Raptors, and the Sixers will win in 5 games.
Yeah, so that wraps it up for this video predicting the first round of the NBA playoffs. We're definitely looking forward to it. I think there's a lot of great matchups. And of course, the Warriors fans have had a very long 1-year drought of not being in the playoffs, so this will be fun for you. But anyway, that wraps it up for this video. This is the Bench Warmers, and we're signing out. See ya.